Hey everyone, I finished watching the next Ninja Storm episode. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Just a minute here. Where is it? Tongue in Cheek? Was that the name? Okay, yep, that was the name of it. Kind of a weird title for this episode. It's not really a tongue-in-cheek type of episode. Anyway, it starts off at Storm Chargers. There's this businessman trying to convince Kelly, the boss, to sell Storm Chargers to his business, and she refuses. And so he sends vandals to vandalize her store. Okay, that amped up quite a bit. And you know what the weird thing is? Those vandals and that whole plot, that never comes back. It's really weird. I don't know. Okay. Like, that happened. Very weird. Anyway, uh, Dustin happens to be there. He sees the vandals break in, so he morphs and scares the criminals away. And then he goes to Ninja Ops, and I have a lot to say about this scene, so I'll just talk about it at the end. Sensei tells Dustin that he shouldn't have used his powers in an everyday situation. So, but he does understand that, I understand why you did what you did, Dustin. Justin's coming back, later. I have something to say about him in relation to this. So anyway, the next day, Blake and Hunter show Dustin this newspaper, and there's an article on the front page about the Yellow Rangers' heroics at Storm Chargers. And then Cam points him to this Power Rangers fan website where the Yellow Ranger has received so much attention, the site crashes, and also somehow blows up Cam's computer. Technology hasn't improved since Zeo, where crap, what was going on in Zeo that caused a computer to, like, blow up or something? Oh yeah, and back in Mighty Morphin the same thing happened. Like, Kimberly, when she was in Billy's body, pressed, like, the wrong keys on the keyboard, and it made the whole thing just blow right up. Although that was something Billy made, so I could believe that Billy would make something that if you press the wrong buttons, it would totally blow up. So anyway, on to Lothor, what Lothor's up to. Mara and Capri are going through fan mail, I think. Is there some alien news network that sends out information about whoever's currently attacking the Earth or something? Anyway, Mara and Capri have a bunch of fan mail, including fan mail from Triforia. Mara likes the boys from Triforia. They're like 3 times as cute as the boys from Earth. Ha ha ha. Yeah, don't get used to that kind of joke, because it's never ever coming back in Ninja Storm again. Very weird that they reference a specific, like, character from a specific planet from a specific season, like a specific couple of episodes from that specific season. I don't know, one of the writers, I think, just must have really liked Trey or something. Anyway, they have a new monster, Slop Goblin, who can turn people into stamps. Sure, why not? I'm sure that's a useful talent. It's such a random thing. Why is it he can turn people into stamps? Anyway, he turns Chubo into a stamp and eats him. It was so worth bringing Chubo back, right? Blake and Hunter get a letter from their adopted grandmother who they've never met before. She's sick and wants them to visit. They get permission from Sensei to go visit her, and for some reason they treat this like, they need permission to use their powers to get there, but we never see them use their powers, they just walk through the woods. What did they need permission? Like, I understand they would want to tell Sensei, oh hey, if something comes up, we might not be able to be there right away because we have to visit our sick grandmother. And, okay, that's fine, but for some reason they spin it in a way that, like, they're gonna use their ninja powers to get there? Or something? They don't. Or at least we don't see it. I don't know what's going on. Moving on from that, because it's not really all that important. Slop Goblin appears at the skate park, and only Dustin notices him. He rushes in, rescues a few people from him, but then there's an army of Kelzacks that shows up. Dustin is fighting them off, then a crowd forms around, cheering him on, and he tries to warn them away, but they just keep cheering, and then Shane notices the crowd around Dustin. He runs over and tries to talk to him, but Dustin's being carried away by the crowd. He's defeated all the monsters, and the crowd wants to throw him a party, I guess. So then later, Dustin finds Shane, tries to talk to him, and Shane rightfully asks, "Why didn't you alert me to this?" And Dustin talks around him and leaves. The popularity is beginning to go to his head. Mar and Capri, meanwhile, have set up a trap for Blake and Hunter. Slop Goblin apparently turned Blake and Hunter's grandmother into a stamp. Off screen, we don't see any of this. And now Capri is taking the grandmother's place. She's like wearing a wig. She has clothes on. Mara's hiding inside. So then Blake and Hunter show up, and Capri doesn't really try to hide who she is. She like immediately sends a bunch of Kelzacks to attack them. So I don't really know why they bothered with this dressing Capri up as the grandmother plan. They could have just waited inside with the Kelzacks. Blake and Hunter go up, knock on the door. One of them puts on an old lady voice, "Come in." They come in, and then they're ambushed by the Kelzacks and Slop Goblin. I don't really know why they went to such trouble for this. There's a lot of stuff in Ninja Storm where it feels like, I don't know, there's a lot of questions raised about, like, why did this happen? Why didn't they do this? This seems like they went to an awful lot of trouble for nothing. So anyway, moving on, they capture Blake and Hunter. My notes jumped around. I don't know where I am now. Okay, there it is. Slop Goblin turns them into stamps, and then he goes to find the other Rangers. Then at Ninja Ops, the Rangers are trying to talk Dustin down from his newly heightened ego. Dustin is acting really weird. He has an agent now for the Yellow Ranger. How does that work? Can he actually get paid? It's kind of like, how was it? In Spider-Man, I think, when Peter Parker is doing stunt work as Spider-Man, he can't actually cash any checks because they're, like, made out to Spider-Man or something. Something like that. Anyway, it's just really impractical. I don't see how Dustin could, like, be so into this. It's also just kind of weird for Dustin as a character. Like, I'll get into that later on, whatever. Slop Goblin shows up in the city, and the Rangers all go to fight him. Oh, and there's a funny little shot where we get a shot inside Slop Goblin where all the people turn into stamps are, and we see Chubo in there, and that's pretty funny. Nice touch. So then Dustin starts arguing with Shane because Dustin wants to look good in case cameras are nearby. I get it. I get what the story is, but I don't know, this just feels really wrong for a character like Dustin to be acting this way. So then Slop Goblin captures Tori. Doesn't turn her into a stamp, he just grabs her for some reason. And so then Shane and Dustin realize, oh, we have to take this seriously because this is a serious situation. And Dustin agrees to work with Shane, and they rescue Tori. They destroy the monster. Lothor makes the monster grow, and this is the episode where Lothor says, "What'd you expect? He wasn't going to get smaller." Which, I like that line. It's kind of weird that this line came up in a kind of forgettable episode. Like, this episode isn't like a super popular episode. It's not a really important episode. Nothing really important is introduced in it. It's just a standalone, standard episode. Nothing really that memorable about it, but that's where this line came from, and it got pretty It's kind of like the other lines in Ninja Storm that got really popular, even though they were in episodes that weren't particularly memorable. So then the Rangers summon the Zords, they destroy the monster, and everybody's turned back to normal. Blake and Hunter meet their real grandmother, and then we cut right away from that. I don't even know why we needed to see that. It was really weird. It goes by so quick. Like, we see Blake, Hunter, their grandmother. "Grandmother, you're okay." Cut right away from it. Like, she barely gets a scene. She doesn't get a single line. She barely gets a scene because it cuts right away. I don't know what was going on there. So then at Ninja Ops later, Shane shows everyone this new newspaper that came out, and this time they show Shane, Tori, and Dustin all together on the cover, with their weapon pointed right at whoever was taking the picture. Was there a camera monster, maybe, who snapped that picture, and then somebody found it and turned it in as their own or something? So anyway, Sensei points out to them, You're lucky the camera missed when you opened your visors. Yeah, I guess. Anyway, Chubo's back to normal, but he's stranded on Earth, and that's where the episode ends. Okay, is that important? Is it important that Chubo was stuck on Earth? He's sure not treated like he's important. So anyway, there's a lot of weird stuff in this episode. The sleazy businessman from the beginning and his goons, that never comes up again. Was Grimlord behind their plot? Oh, that didn't work once. Never do it again. Oh yeah, and the old, never use your powers for personal gain. It's really weird how it is here. I really think there need to be a few clarifications to Zordon's dusty old rules, because, like, the biggest problem with this never use your powers for personal gain is that there's never a positive alternative presented. Or at the very least, there's rarely one. Or, it's like, it's the really bad parts where this is brought up that stand out the most. I'm sure there's good parts in... Yeah, actually, in Ninja Storm, there's the episode where Tori is running back and forth between two separate dates, and she's using her ninja speed or whatever, and that's personal gain, because neither of the events she's running back and forth to have, like, anything to do with the defense of Earth, or really anything, like, good. She just didn't think when setting up two separate dates, and she didn't think to tell anybody. She just cheated and used her powers. I can get that. That makes sense. And it was in this season, so it makes it even weirder that they would bring it up here. Dustin rescued the store from vandals. That's personal gain. He's not the one who owns the store. Also, like, these are criminals. And Dustin even brings it up, saying, we fight Lothor's goons all the time. Like, is that, like, the only instance where you're allowed to use your powers? Only when you're fighting something connected with Lothor? You're not allowed to use your powers for just the betterment of the Earth? Or wherever they live? This is a weird situation. It's a really weird line. Especially since Sensei even follows it up with, I understand why you did what you did. But, okay, so why... Also, interesting thing to note, Kelly was still in the store, or at least nearby, when the vandals broke in. What if they were armed? What if they shot Kelly? Like, would Sensei be like, well, Dustin, at least you didn't use your powers for personal gain. Like, anyway, the thing that I was thinking of comparing this to was way back in Turbo with Justin. There's an episode where Justin is being chased by bullies. He climbs up a tree and teleports out of the situation. And while that episode was, like, pretty badly written, in the context of that episode, it makes sense why he would do that. Like, it wasn't just him being selfish, it was he didn't want to, like, get into a fight with these people. He didn't, like, there wasn't really a way out. He was up a tree. Literally, he was up a tree. And they didn't see him. Like, they hadn't spotted him yet. He teleported before they could see him. And, like, when I was a kid and I remember seeing that episode, my thinking was he teleported away because he didn't want to fight the kids. He totally could have. He's a martial artist. He could have easily just kicked these kids' butt and been on his way, but he chose not to. Isn't that the more, like, admirable thing for a Power Ranger to do, is know when not to fight and instead leave? So, anyway, yeah, it's not a bad rule, because of, like, the example earlier in Ninja Storm with Tori, but the problem with it is that, like I said earlier, there's never a positive alternative presented. Like, why didn't Sensei tell Dustin, you shouldn't have used your powers, you should have called for the police or something, like that? Like, it still wouldn't have been perfect, because then Dustin would be like, well, it'd take a while for the police to get there, and again, what if they shot Kelly? What if they hurt Kelly in some way? What if they kidnapped her? What if they burned the place down? What if the fire spread to other places? There's all these things that could have happened if he wasn't there to stop them. Oh, and also, as far as Kelly knows, Dustin was still there too. If he wasn't a Power Ranger and these guys broke in, they spotted him, what's stopping them from hurting him or killing him? I know this is like probably overthinking it a bit, but the show presented this situation, which is a fairly serious situation. Vandals broke in with the intention to wreck the store, and we don't know exactly how far their intentions go. Do they want to hurt people? Like, vandalizing the store is one thing, hurting people is like another. So I think Dustin was totally justified in what he did, and he didn't fight the criminals. He just morphed and like stood there, and that was enough to scare them away. He morphs, stands there. I think he like pushes one over at some point, but that's about as far as it goes. He never like attacks on the offensive. Also, I'm remembering way back in Mighty Morphin, wasn't there? Yeah, way back in Mighty Morphin, there's scenes where the Rangers like use their powers like not for like fighting evil or anything. It's just to like do a thing. Let's see. Zach had to leave the juice bar, but he couldn't like actually physically walk out or something. I'm trying to remember. He set up this thing where he's doing a magic trick. He tells Bulk, "Okay, wave the wand, say I am Mag-Un, and I'll disappear." And so he gets into the little box and he teleports away, and no one sees it because he's in the box. So and also he's a magician, that's established. So it makes sense that yeah, maybe he's just using sleight of hand and he's disappeared. And he teleports back into the box and it doesn't, like, give away anything. Anyway, moving on to other points in this. How are, how are Mara and Capri going through fan mail? It's so weird. Aliens have a mail system? That's weird. Also, I like the little reference to Triforia, whatever. It's a cool thing. A lot of fans really like this little reference. It's a reference that makes sense. It's a clever little reference for the older fans who are saying the boys from Triforia are like 3 times as cute because, oh, like Trey could split into three. And, yeah. It's really weird because it's such a deep cut reference, and there's nothing else like that in Ninja Storm. The other jokes in Ninja Storm, like that are like kind of meta referential jokes, they're extremely basic. Like there's a joke early on where they're fighting the Kelzaks, or oh wait, no, they're fighting those mud zombie things, and they say, "Who do we fight? Anyone not wearing a primary color?" And then there's a joke somewhere, let's see, Dustin says, I thought the red guy was supposed to be the leader. Like, not always. Like, the past couple of seasons, it's kind of iffy if the Red Ranger was the leader. In Wild Force, like, Red is the de facto leader, but, like, technically, Taylor, the Yellow Ranger, is the leader. Before that, the Pink Ranger, Jen, was the leader. Let's see, Lightspeed had, yeah, Carter is the Red Ranger, he's the leader. Lost Galaxy was Leo. Do they really have a designated, like, leader character? They kind of just all work together. Anyway, whatever. Back to this thing. Um, oh yeah. Dustin's ego in this episode is very strange. It rises so quickly, and it reminds me of, like, an old cartoon plot. Or modern cartoon plot. They still use this. I don't know why this is such a big thing. Where a character would get like a little power and popularity and immediately dismiss all their old friends, and in the end learn that, friends are more important than popularity. I get it. I get what it's going for. But it's just Dustin is a very weird character for this thing. He's portrayed as like loyal and hardworking, but then again, he is also shown to be like overly trusting. Like when he gives the guy his bike, not knowing fully who he is. It turns out okay in the end, but still, up until uh, at the end, it kind of looks like he's made a very dumb mistake. So I don't know, maybe his overly trusting nature is like what plays against him and what gets him like to, I don't know, really fall in with this like cheering crowd saying how great he is. I don't know, it's a stretch, but it's all I can think of. I don't know, it's just not a very good character moment for Dustin. It's not really bad. It's not like retconning anything. It's not really destroying his character. It's just an odd choice, and it's I don't like it. So anyway, moving on from that thing. Oh yeah, one of the things going back to the Treforia reference, I wonder if one of the reasons why that was in here was it was a like little subtle hint at the series returning to its pre-Disney continuity. Because as far as Ninja Storm is concerned on its own, it's not in canon with the previous seasons. In the first episode, they established that Power Rangers are not a thing well known about. That they're a comic book or urban legend, we don't know. One or the other, or both. And I don't know, after coming off of Time Force and Wild Force, where Power Rangers are established to be like a known thing, and the world is like very connected with Forever Red, it was an odd choice to have Ninja Storm break away like that at the beginning if its intention wasn't to separate it from the previous seasons. So the Treforia thing, I think, is kind of a clue that, oh, we're retconning that comic book urban legend thing at the beginning, and we're going back to the continuity, like, continues on from Mighty Morphin to Wild Force, and now Ninja Storm is part of that again. And it'll be cemented next season, but at this point, it's just a little possible hint. And, let's see. Nothing else really to say about this one. I've been going on for about it for a while, so that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. See ya.